is it, with phone features such as caller ID and special ringtones for family members and loved ones, why do these same people feel compelled to identify themselves each and every time they call us? Mr. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Oh, it's a text message from my daughter. I'll get it later. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. My mother, let me give you some examples. My mother would call me every Saturday night at 7 o'clock sharp. You could set your watch by it. My mother had a very unique voice. When my mom would call, it sounds like this. Hello, Ray. This is your mother. I knew it was my mother, not only from the time or the day, but from the very first. Hello, Ray. A typical conversation with my mother is about the weather. My mom says, "So, Ray, what's the weather like in South Carolina?" "Well, Mom, it's supposed to be really hot here today." "Oh, I hate the hot weather." "Well, Mom, then tell me, what's the weather going to be like in Philadelphia today?" "Well, it's cold here today. I hate the cold weather." That's my mom for you. We would continue to talk, and then she would conclude by saying, "So have you heard from your brother Gary this week?" And I said, "Yes, Mom, I just heard from him the other day." "Well, that's good. Well, I love you, Ray." And we'd hang up. Speaking of my brother also has a very unique voice. A call from my brother sounds like this. "Oh, hello there. This is your brother, Gary." I knew it was my brother Gary, not only from the caller ID or from his goofy sounding voice, but I have no other siblings. No other brothers, no sisters, just my brother Gary. One day I tried to fool him. I said, "Oh, really? I thought maybe this was my brother Bob or my brother Joe." No, it's your brother Gary." A typical conversation with my brother would be about sports. Although we were both born in Philadelphia, I am an avid Philadelphia Eagles fan, and yet he is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. He calls me every time the Steelers win or the Eagles lose, just to rub it in. We would continue our conversation, and almost every time he would conclude by saying, "So how are the children doing?" "Well, the children are doing fine today, Gary." "Well, that's good. Well, I love you there, brother." And I'd say, "I love you too, Gary." And we'd hang up. Let me tell you about my children, since my brother always mentioned them. My children call me every... Wait a minute. Did I say my children call me every day? No. My children don't call me. They text me. In fact, just the other day, my son was in his bedroom, which is about 10 feet from the living room, which is where I was sitting. His text said, "Hey, Dad, what time's dinner?" I'm no better. I text him back in about 10 minutes. My daughter, on the other hand, when my daughter texts me, I can always tell her intentions. She will either text, "Hey, Dad," or "Hey, Dad," and spell that D-A-A-A-A-A-A-A-D, which in her voice sounds like this. "Dad," which means she wants something. Now, whether it be in a text message from my children or a phone call from my mother and brother, if you think I responded each and every time, well, you'd be wrong. You see, I was of the firm belief that I could always call them back, or they could always call me back. Or could they? You see, about 3 years ago, within 6 months of each other, both my mother and brother passed away. I no longer get phone calls from my mother. I no longer get phone calls from my brother. In fact, the last phone call I got from my brother was on a Wednesday. He told me to call me back the next night. I said, no, don't bother. I'm going to be busy. Call me on Friday night. On Friday morning, I got a phone call from my sister-in-law. My brother had passed away that morning. Would I ever want to get one more phone call from my mother where I hear her say, hello, Ray, this is your mother? You bet I would. In a heartbeat. Would I ever like to look at my phone one more time and see on my caller ID that it was my brother calling? You bet I would. In a heartbeat. What will you do the next time you get a phone call from a family member or a loved one? Please, don't pass up that opportunity. Take that call, because you never know when you may not get the opportunity to call them back again. Treat yourselves. Take that call in a heartbeat. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's my daughter texting me again. She spelled dad the long way. Should I respond to this message?
Yes.
You bet I should.